It's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Terumah. Whose table is it? Look at the Parsha. There's an interesting phenomenon when it comes to the Mishkan, the tabernacle, described in Parshat Terumah. On the one hand, it's a house of God. We ask God to live there. Suli Mikdash, we make Asuli Mikdash, we make for God a sanctuary, and He will live in it. He will live among us. So it's a house for God. As Sforno points out, other commentaries point out, look, when you want to have a house, you need certain things. Again, God doesn't need it, but for human houses, you always have, as the Isha Shunamit, this woman who wanted to host Elisha, said, you need a mitah, shulchan, chisei, unorah. You need a bed. Well, God doesn't need a bed. You need maybe the Aron HaKodesh is like the chair of God. Aron, the shulchan, you need a table. You need a kisei, again, maybe the ark is the throne of God. And a menorah, you need light. You can't sit there in the dark. So that's why the Mishkan has a table. It has a menorah, and it has a place for God's dwelling on the ark. So if we ask, whose ark is it? Whose house is it? So the first inclination is it's God's house. It has all the furniture that a person would have in a house. So God doesn't need furniture, doesn't dwell in that kind of way. But it would be appropriate for us as humans to set aside for Him something akin to what we would need if we were having a house. On the other hand, the shulchan represents our table. Zohar says that we want God to shower us with blessing, but God doesn't shower things on nothing. You have to do something, as the Sifrei says. So they say, well, maybe God will just bless you even if you don't do anything. He says, no, whatever you do something, and then God will bless your work that you do. You can't just sit around and wait for bounty. You have to have something. So we take a shulchan, we take a table, we put 12 loaves of bread on it, representing the 12 Jews, showing that maybe it's our bread, and we ask God to shower us with bounty. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says that in Yechezkel, it points to the shulchan. It says Zeh Mizbeach, Zeh Shulchan Shel Hashem. He points to the altar and he says it's a shulchan. So we say that your table is also a shulchan. The table is an altar. You have to be careful. You don't sometimes you cover the knife because you don't want to use metal on the table, etc., etc. So in some ways, the table is our table, and we're asking God to bless our table, representing the 12 tribes. Beautiful exposition in the Reb Shamshon Fal Hirsch, the way that the loaves sit on the various racks shows that each one makes room for the other. There are 2 portions of man within each loaf, therefore each Jew sharing with the other. That there is space between them. We don't want to be one blob. We are individuals. So, but it's all about our being. It being our table. Now, in fact, the Chizkuni says God wants us to eat from His table. So that represents the idea that it sort of brings the two together. On the one hand, it's His table. On the other hand, God wants us to eat from it. The Kohanim actually eat those loaves of bread that are on the shulchan, on the table, the 12 lechem hapanim. The Torah more says, you have the Aron, represents Torah. So you think, oh, the Jew's going to get Torah. He says, no. If you don't have flour, you don't have bread, there won't be any Torah. So the Shulchan represents the need to set up charity and for others. As the Zohar says, there are 2 ways of sanctifying your table. One is with Torah, reminiscent of the Aron HaKodesh, not too far away. And the other is by giving to the poor. So the shulchan, in some ways, is for the poor. I once heard from Rasul Berman that maybe the Shulchan represents the Milos Chasodim, the kindness. The Aron, of course, represents Torah, and then the menorah, the altar, represents avoda. So that the architecture of your shul, which has a shulchan, of the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, they all represent the values of the Jewish people. For instance, the value of tzniut, the value of privacy, is represented by the fact that the Torah is not uncovered. You don't walk in a synagogue and say, "Oh, there's the Torah." No. You can't see the Torah. It's behind something because there's modesty. It represents the value of the Torah. So whose table is it? Ultimately, we have to make our tables into God's table. How do we do that? By sharing with the poor, so that we know that God gave us the largesse, and we are sharing with others. And by studying Torah at the table, so that we bring God with us. We invite God to every table, every meal that we have. Invite God to it with words of Torah and kind words one to another. Whose table is it? It's God's table. We make a place for God in this world, and it's our table. God invites us to that table, and He says, "What? Put something on the table, and then I'll bless you. I'll bless you. You do your share, and I will give you further blessings." Let's hope that indeed all the efforts that we make toward Torah, toward charity, toward brotherhood, towards bringing God into our lives should be blessed, and God should shower us with additional blessings, even beyond the 12 loaves that are there, beyond what is our table, within our own sights. And God will continue to shower us with blessings. All we have to do is to set the table. Thanks for joining us here at the Baron Hirsch Congregation, Memphis, Tennessee. Join us each week for the discussion of the Parsha and the holidays. Thanks to Maurice Buring for sponsoring these lectures in memory of his beloved parents, Ruth and Jacob Buring. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.